On Resolve Problem segment tonight, the nanny state versus Christianity. This topic is being hotly debated and is being used by some left-wing politicians.
We're the richest nation in the world. And, well, when Jesus had those 5 loaves and 2 fishes, he didn't charge food stamps. He didn't ask anybody how much money they had. He fed them because they were hungry.
Also, last week, Pope Francis said that income inequality is immoral, but he didn't get very specific on that. Joining us now from Washington, Joshua Dubois, the author of the book, The President's Devotional, the daily readings that inspire President Obama. Mr. Dubois advises the president on spiritual matters. Here in the studio, Father Gerald Murray, Roman Catholic priest. And we'll begin with you, Father. Congressman McDermott trying to convince people by saying that Jesus would feed the poor, which he would. We all know that,
right?
Okay? But would he impose a system that hurts one group to help another group?
Not at all. In fact, to say that big government was the goal of Jesus' preaching and miracles would be absurd. And I think that comparison, food stamps and the feeding of the 5,000 is out of order. No, Christ came to inspire us to follow him, his teaching, and part of that teaching is we take care of the poor, and we do so for spiritual motives.
But we haven't taken care of the poor in America if there's 41, as the president said, million people uninsured who have to depend on emergency room care and they don't have health insurance. So we really haven't taken care of them.
That's right, Bill.
Wait. Let Father Murray in, and I'll get over.
Well, in comparison to other countries in the world, we've done pretty well. But it's true, we have to do better. I don't know that the solution is nationalized health care.
Now, Mr. Dubois, the problem I have, as I stated, is that you're helping one group by hurting another group and a bigger group. And so I don't know if Jesus is going to be down with that. Go ahead.
Well, Jesus would be down for the poor. He would want to make sure that every single person in this country had enough food to eat. And the bottom line is, if you add up every single private charitable dollar that feeds hungry people in this country, it's only 10% of what we would need to make sure everyone has food in their stomach. The rest comes from the federal government. It's $7 billion compared to $80 billion. And so if the government doesn't step in, people are going to go hungry. And that's the bottom line.
You're making a powerful argument, but there's one huge mistake in it. And that is that some of the people who don't have enough to eat, it's their fault they don't have enough to eat, particularly with their children. And this is where it really becomes dicey. If you're an alcoholic or a heroin addict or a drug addict and you can't hold a job, all right, and you can't support your children, and that's a circumstance of millions and millions of people, not most, but a lot, a substantial minority, okay, then it's your fault. You're bringing the havoc. And then that you're asking people who may be struggling themselves to put food on the table to give their tax money to you, and then you're not even going to buy food with it. You're going to buy booze and drugs with it because there's no government regulation about that. And that's my problem.
Yeah, with all due respect, there's a lot of misconceptions in what you just said about the food stamps program. The vast majority of that program goes to elderly people, people who are disabled. 46% are children.
But they're
and then
children
most people
who aren't being supported
families.
by their parents.
Well,
that's
actually,
where
no,
they are.
Most of the food stamps goes to working families. Only 1 out of 10 food stamp recipients is a recipient of cash welfare. So that I'm not saying that it's not a problem.
My parents did make a lot of money, and they were able to put food on the table. And I'm just seeing a system now that creates dependence. All right, now let's go over to the dependence question. All right, so Jesus is there, and he's walking around, and his main message is compassion. Correct?
His main is conversion, and part of conversion is to be compassionate to our neighbor.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the tenet of Christianity, we have to be compassionate toward, love your neighbor as yourself. That's it.
That's
you got to be
correct.
compassionate, okay? But there are some people that we see that are suffering through their own fault, all right? So how do Christians deal with that?
Well, we challenge people to live up to their nature.
But they're not going to.
Well, you try, you do your best,
But what's my financial responsibility to their children?
That's a matter. No, it's an interesting question. We do have to help people, particularly those who can't support themselves, children. Now, the mechanism to get them the money, that's a very interesting question.
It is, and that's my problem.
And believe me, private charities do a much better job of taking care of children.
But as Mr. Dubois pointed out, there's not enough money. Now, Mr. Dubois, I give a lot of money, and you probably know this, to children's charities, okay?
Yep.
Children who have derelict parents. And I say, it's not the kid's fault, so I'm going to give the money to the kids. But I don't give it to charities unless the charity hands it to the kids or gets it right to the kids. So I'm circumventing the drugs and the alcohol and the other craziness, All right, and I know charities who do that, and they do it well. But a lot of charities don't, and the government certainly doesn't. The government throws it with no drug testing, no counseling, nothing. Bang, right in there. And a lot of that money goes right down the drain. Go ahead.
But, Bill, I would tell you, I don't live in a derelict country. There are some folks who have the problems that you described, but that is not the vast majority of food stamp recipients. Most of these folks are making $12 an hour, $15 an hour, trying to put food on the table, and they just need a little help from a compassionate country to stretch their bills and make sure that their kids get fed.
You don't think that we're creating a culture of dependence here in this country now?
I think we're creating a culture where we're trying to give folks a hand up so they can get out of poverty. That's what SNAP does. That's what the food stamp program does. That's not saying there aren't some exceptions to that. Absolutely, there are abuses, and we need to get rid of them. But for the most part, people who are receiving food stamps in SNAP are not derelicts. They're not dependents. They're folks who just need a little bit of help to put food on the table.
Very good debate, guys. We appreciate you both coming in. Merry Christmas to you, and plenty more ahead.